Don, welcome back to the Homeless Left, and you're still out in D.C. I want to hear everything that's been going on. I know you sent me a couple things here. Do you want to give us kind of a quick rundown, and then I want to play a couple of your interviews here you were able to do there. What's the vibe like? I guess I just want to throw it out to you. Like, how does it feel out there as far as all the happenings? I know it was pretty chaotic yesterday.
I'm remembering 1,050 years ago, being in a college dormitory with my girlfriend, arriving Friday night, spending pretty much the entire weekend in our room. How I felt about 5 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, lying half off the bed, panting with exhaustion and sweating. That's what this city looks like today. The last few days, it's been packed with people everywhere in the city, traveling from one place to another. First of all, challenging just with the military and police security infrastructure that they started installing in the middle of last week. When we arrived on Wednesday afternoon, there were already military police, shore patrol, DHS, FBI, God knows who else, cops with Arkansas plates and plates from Oregon and all over the country, everywhere, and street closures everywhere. So the people that are familiar with the grid in Washington, D.C., rather than being a straight grid like a tic-tac-toe board like Manhattan, say, with a few stragglers like Broadway crossing it, you have quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, and each of them has some of the same street names in it, except it's not the same street. So it's a little confusing if you don't know your way around. And then you have GPS, which helps in some ways. It's about 95% accurate, which is pretty good, except for that 5%, and then you're screwed. And then the real, thing here is that all of a sudden you're cruising 5 or 6 blocks on your way to where you have to be, and there's another road closure. And the people involved in setting it up, even on Monday, Sunday on Monday, really didn't know what else there was in the immediate vicinity because they haven't really been off the block. So it was very challenging to get around. And while we were watching them roll this out, we were trying to imagine exactly what it was that would provoke such a reaction. Like what were they anticipating, expecting? We saw no violence, even antipathy, anger being vented. It was like a huge celebration. Even the protesters that were here, people sounded kind of angry, I would say, and afraid, which what's being reported about what is about to happen. For people that believe that particular line, I can understand why they're upset. There are people that believe that this is 1932 and Adolf Hitler was just appointed as chancellor, and that we're about to start burning. They were saying first gay people, but I guess the YMCA thing the other night put a damper on that. Now you can't find it on YouTube. There were celebrations of parties everywhere and bodies everywhere. That being the point, I'm looking at the infrastructure that they installed and wondering why, and I saw masses of human beings everywhere, and said, "Oh, they're trying to just manage traffic." It was a real pain in the neck. It was cold. It's been cold as hell here since I got here. Today, I think it's 21 degrees Fahrenheit. And a little bit of a breeze, so it feels even colder than that. And when we went, they generally hold the inauguration on the steps of the Capitol building. They move that inside to the rotunda. When they hold it outside, it's visible from the mall, the National Mall, and so 500,000 people or whatever pile into that. They expected, ticketed apparently 200,000 people to, mob the National Mall while that happened. When they moved it inside, they moved the public to a warm place also, which is what they call the Capital One Arena, which is unfortunately 20,000 seats roughly for 200,000 ticketed people. So I had gotten tickets to cover it, and we couldn't get near the place. We were online and winding through these streets in the neighborhood there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And when we were a block away, they announced that no one else was being let in, and we were pretty early. So a lot of people, nevertheless, rather than seeing people come back angry, disappointed, or whatever, and I spoke with a couple of them, they were celebratory. There are people here from all over the country who came here because they think that there's some sort of a shift for the better that's taking place. Are they right? That's a separate question. I interviewed some with Russell and Keaton on Monday, and just like any other group that you interview, it's not like you're getting folks with a PhD in political science or economics or government, whatever. Ordinary people who see the political system as having an impact on their everyday lives, who apparently have, the groups that I spoke with and the people that I've met while I've been here, are people who thought things were not going well, and not just during Biden's time, although certainly that, but over the decades and over the years past, and that they see the possibility of a change. The things that I heard from people that were important to them, and this was as broad a mix as I could get, is there people who would not let me interview them because they saw me interviewing people with Trump hats and stuff on. Essentially, they were concerned at first about their own situation, about prices, price of food, medical care, things like that. The social issues, quote unquote, were very high on the list also. Surprisingly to me, I still don't understand how, but I know why we're fed that stuff, because it does provoke a response in people. Girls, basketball being protected from boys dressed as girls, is the way I heard it put. Other social issues along those lines. And a sense, though, that there was some sort of an adjusting of the public narrative that would allow, more free speech and less restriction. I think certainly the things that are going on with the announcements by a variety of social media outlets that they're going to stop, quote unquote, censoring, quote unquote, and Musk's takeover of X, Twitter, whatever, and the opening of that, the announcement that TikTok, which had been suspended for a few hours, was going to be allowed to operate. Almost everyone I spoke with mentioned these things. It was important to them to be able to connect with other people using these platforms, and so that was on their mind also. I think finally, the thing that seemed most important to the people that I spoke with was that they felt that they had a chance to be heard, not just in social media, but just generally in the electoral system again. There were a good number of people who felt that the last election was stolen in 2020. I know that that's an unpopular view, almost diagnosable as some sort of psychiatric condition among some, but I've seen the same psychosis, if that's what it is, in people discussing the 2000 election, the 2004 election, and others. And I share that psychosis in those elections because I did a considerable amount of research myself, both on the ground and through the court systems. And in any event, the thing that matters is the perception by the people of what's happened. They seem to feel now that they're being heard and that they have an opportunity to have their hands on the government in some ways where they didn't feel that before. And there's a city full of them right now. And Oddly enough, that city, at least up until today, has been for the last week, Washington, D.C.
Well, I'm going to play one of these interviews. I know you said you found a bar. You let me know this before you came on. That would, I guess, be the one place in DC. You're saying is let me throw this on the stage here. So this is they call it that. This may be the only bar in DC publicly supporting Trump. All right, let's check out this video, and I want to hear your reaction on this. Here we go.
I saw that, I knew that this was the place.
USA! 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 We will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you, USA! Thank you, USA! Thank you, USA! Thank you.
As soon as I saw that,
Yeah, that's interesting because I was I was in DC 4 years prior, and it was clearly a place where they were afraid. They were actually afraid. This is I will let me ask you, were you there last time? Were you there 4 years ago? Because I know we didn't know each other then. I didn't have the show then.
no, I watched C-SPAN, and no, I didn't. I wasn't here.
So I was helping with some camera stuff for BBC coverage that were there. They were there doing the Newsnight show, and I was on set with them. The whole thing was about it was the fear that Trump people were going to be so angry they were going to destroy the city. It was insane, and so they had boarded everything up. They thought these people are just they're gonna destroy everything. They're just these vicious, as Hillary once said, they're deplorables. As Biden's now saying they're garbage. All the divisive language, right, to get people to think that 4 years ago these people were going to destroy everything. Now, you mentioned earlier, I want to ask about this. So the people there protesting the inauguration, were they doing anything? Like what was their vibe? You said they were kind of angry, confused, maybe sad, or what was their vibe? Because this is like the reverse, right? This is them not really knowing how to function now that they're watching their guy go out, and this Hitler character coming in that they were told it was Germany, not Nazi Germany again.
Yeah, the same as 4 years ago. Fear is what sold to people to encourage them into this sort of frenzied state of opposition. Around DC, they're handing out pamphlets. What to do if ICE comes knocking on your door, and the horrible things that are about to happen.
Wow.
If you look at the AP wires, AP.com, the Washington Post, also the New York Times, people are terrified that horrible things are going to start happening to the most vulnerable, and also. It's pretty frightening in the social media sphere. I'm seeing people talk about, they're referring to Trump. The only criticism that they have now, forget the Hitler thing and all the other stuff they had before, was now he's a convicted felon. There's people that, for years have worked on criminal justice issues who have given zero credibility to a criminal conviction coming out of the court system for most of my life. All of a sudden, the most damning thing about Trump is that he has criminal conviction. So there's there's a disconnect from people's own, political sentiments and histories that's sort of driving this. And you can look at the media. And which media outlet someone is looking at, and really it's frightening to the degree that you can predict what they're going to say and how they're going to behave in the context of something like this. The people that are looking at MSNBC and CNN are of the opinion that Trump is a special, unique, or not even almost, unique danger to the republic, a term that most of them haven't used in their whole lives, by the way, and that the democracy that exists in this country, which most of them would have denied only 10 minutes ago, is under threat or about to be lost forever, and that we're talking about death camps for gays and other things as a part of the political discourse, and so there's an energy to the protests here and 4 years ago. I mean, this is not a phenomenon just of, I'm not going to use the term the left either, because that is not the left, but it's not just a phenomenon of the supporters of Democratic candidates, but also of Trump and other candidates. The media here has, they understand they have a monopoly on the pathway of information from the outside world to the brains of everyone looking at it. Everything that people know about what happens in Washington, from Congress to the streets, gets their information through the media. How many people read the Congressional Record on a daily basis? How many people sit in front of CNN, C-SPAN, which is also, by the way, the media, and watch the proceedings in different committees and others? And I don't mean the ones that they feature today, because what's going to be conducted, the circus that's going to happen inside a committee meeting today, is part and parcel of a larger public relations campaign that's being conducted. But the everyday goings on of the various congressional committees, most people can't afford the time to do that. The members of Congress can't do that. How does somebody that's got to feed their family slinging hamburgers or driving a taxi or loading a dock or working in a factory, how are they going to do that? That we rely entirely, almost, upon the media, what's fed to us through the media.
I don't think, Don, that it's an issue of people don't have time to pay attention. I think we're talking about, because you mentioned about, you brought up the convicted felon thing, and this part is important because you and I covered this together when that verdict happened. I remember in real time we were looking at that as those felonies he was officially a convicted felon. And I think that there were very smart people that were studied in law, people that were very book smart, very on point, were looking at this and still couldn't see between the capture. And I think that's what the main problem is. It's the capture of these people. You and I mean, look, I said 4 years ago, I was working out in DC where you are right now. I was working with BBC. These are people that do this all day long. They get paid to do this. So they don't have that excuse of, I don't have time to look at this. They were all captured too. I literally walked into that studio and every single person, cameraman in front of the camera, director, production assistant, everybody was like, we have to stop these psychopaths from taking over our city. And so like you ask yourself, well, where do you get that from? You do have the time to pay attention. You do have the time to look at it. Lawyers and studied people now, when the 34 felonies went through, they have time, they have energy, they can look at it. Why don't they see it? I don't think they see it because they've already been captured. Their brain is already in a position where it's going to filter out stuff that's right in front of their face. How else do we explain watching the J6 thing go down? And as you and I and people that aren't wearing their tribal goggles, aren't wearing these captured helmets or whatever the hell their other people are wearing, we could see that evidence coming out more and more. We can see all of the obvious, infiltration elements of that thing. And like for people to purposely ignore it, I don't think it's because they didn't have enough time to look at it. I think that their brain is in a position where it can't see it. It's filtering it out. That's how it's been designed. And I think I don't know how we fix that with people. How do we fix that problem?
I mean, it's a question here, of course, of how people process what they see. Critical, evaluation, whatever, what they call critical thinking. But you have, the phenomenon you described, where you've got a BBC camera person who's been going to work every day and pointing a camera at something every day. They still get the balance of their information about the world, which includes the context of what they're looking at, through the media, which gets processed through this whole McGill. The ownership the editorial policy, all of that, very extremely tightly controlled, and resting upon whatever machinations those who own it intend to use it for, resting upon the largest data set in history of the universe, maybe. Then what they're looking at in real life, even if they're news people, and even if they've been reporting on news stories every day, is a minor, like an almost insignificant part of the whole, which they're looking at through the same machinery that the rest of us are looking at, even if they're plugged into it from the front end. And in fact, that can reify the effect of what they're looking at through the machine, because they believe that there's a legitimacy to it, because they're looking at a small piece of it themselves. But if you really look critically, for example, at some of the things that, as one of those folks, you point the camera at, and then watch what it becomes out in the world, it gives, it tends to help decode the rest of it in a way. So anyway, this is not the central point here, although this is the phenomenon that we're dealing with, to try to tell people that you guys are at each other's throats, kind of on a, it's a lark, it's a mistake, and it's actually something intended to keep you in the situation you're in, so you don't try to solve the problems that you're experiencing.
Yeah. Well, let's look at, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think that there's a sense among people that support Trump that there is a shift in that paradigm. And there's something else, because last night we went to an event that was sponsored by the Center for Political Innovation, this Caleb Hoffman's group that I spoke there. Garland Nixon was there. Dr.
Wilmer Leon was there.
A number of people were there, and
cool.
It was an interesting evening, just in terms of hearing different people's perspectives on what we were all witnessing. But the thing that was more interesting to me was the way people were viewing what was happening themselves. Not MAGA people at all, communists, leftists, people who have been working on some of this stuff, 50 years and more, talking about this as perhaps, we're standing on the precipice of, a new epoch. You have the changing geopolitical situation, with the rise of BRICS, the decline or dissipation or disintegration of the monopolar world, being at the brink of World War III or in it already, the huge changes in global economic condition, the rise of China, the rise of India, the whole expansion of BRICS and what that means for integrating an alternative global economic architecture, and the maturation of social and political values that are the product not of 19th century ideas and 20th century reality, but 21st century perspective on all of that, and apprehending the problems facing us in the 21st century and going forward towards the 22nd. People that are either immersed in political activism and academia, as well as ordinary workers and people in general, feel that the difficult, at this point, for many intolerable situation that they've been experiencing for decades, and in many cases longer, is about to change, for better or worse, and that they have an opportunity to put their hands on it and help guide it from where they are in one fashion or another. And they see this election as being, I won't necessarily, some see it as central, many do. All see it as an important component of this process. And so that's kind of an interesting environment to spend a week in, which is what I've pretty much done now.
Let's take a look at one of the interviews here, and this is the local, I think this was from the same spot, right? The bar, the one
Yeah,
area
yeah.
that you got the excited people. This is the vibe you're talking about. That something's happening. There's something in the air. To me, it feels kind of similar to that. There's something in the air back in 2008, 2009 with Obama. We felt something was happening. There was a momentum. It feels like it might have reversed a little. I want to talk about that maybe a little bit. Let's hear this interview you had here. I'll make sure the volume's up.
Okay, tell me your name and where you're from.
Yeah, Tim O'Neill, originally from Maine. I live in the D.C. area now.
So why are you in D.C. now?
Yeah, so I actually work on Capitol Hill.
So today's the victory rally, tomorrow the inauguration. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm very excited about it, and we're going to save America tomorrow. We've gone through 4 years of weaponization of the federal government and terrible policies, and we're finally going to have Trump back, and we're going to fix a lot of that.
Why do you think he would be able to do things that he says he wanted to do more this time than last time?
Yeah, I mean, I think just look at he's more popular now than he's ever been. He's got the House and the Senate. I know it's the majorities, but we also have Mike Johnson and John Thune who are going to be working hard to get his agenda passed. And I think the country's truly behind him. I think the country gave him a mandate on November 5th, and he's going to follow through on that.
Are you going to be here for the speech that is going to happen in a little while? Can we speak with you again after that?
Yeah, I'm hoping to be. I'm going to be here for the speech tonight, and tomorrow I don't know. Probably going to be home. It's going to be so cold. We're supposed to go to the speech, but I'm glad that he took care of his people and made sure it moved inside. But yeah, it's going to be a great day for America.
So we'll catch you after the speech today, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, I'm happy to come back.
Thank you very much, Tim.
And I never did, by the way. I never did catch up with him.
Oh man, I there's something about that. I was just thinking about Obama. I was thinking back to 2009, and I was actually there in 2009 as well. We went to it was he mentioned how cold it was, and I remember being just freezing. January 2009, 16 years ago. There was something in the air then as well, and I remember feeling like, there was part of the country that was angry. They were furious. They had rage. They had confusion. They said this guy was not who he said he was, and he was going to do these horrible. He wasn't one of us. He's from an outsider coming in, and they were afraid. And we just kind of said, you know what? We're not going to worry about you. We're just going to enjoy this moment and really feel like that something big is going to happen. Of course, looking back, we were wrong. We were wrong to think that Obama was this hope and change. We were wrong. He was part of the same thing that he was supposed to be replacing. He was part of the same thing, and so that camp. I wish we had existed then. We didn't know. We didn't have what we have now. We didn't have the social media and Twitter. We didn't have the ability to look deeper into these things. But what we did have was we had a moment that was real, and we didn't worry about the other people in the country that seemed to be fueled with racism and hatred and fear. We just kind of ignored them and said, this is a real moment. Do you feel like that might be the reverse of what we're experiencing right now with the people that want this hope and change with Trump, and they feel that no matter what happens later, there is a moment, and they're kind of ignoring that rest of that we talked about earlier, the people living in fear and confusion and think that Trump is this Hitler thing. They're just ignoring that, and they're saying, no, we have a real moment happening here. Of course, you and I are in this third camp of being able to really look at it with critical thinking skills and say what's actually happening. But do you think in that sense of the thing, do you think there's been a kind of a reversal in these 16 years of the hope and change versus the dread and fear?
Well, a lot of this rests upon, you have the same problem with the source of information being, determining whether it's virtual or real. The bulk of it comes to us through virtual means anyway, and they're outside of our control and well within the hands of control of the people that these other political activities are intended to counter, out in the world, out in the political street, whatever. Barack Obama, distinguishing the Obama phenomenon from the Trump phenomenon, there are a few things. A constant, first of all, was the fact of an increasing sense of pauperization, of desperation, etc. The economy was in free fall. We were at a massive war again. If they had gotten away from Vietnam syndrome, it came in and sat on our head at that point. And so they were so desperate. I've heard enough people say now over the years, they were so desperate that they elected the black guy. That was unprecedented in the history of the country, as everyone knows, and was reminded if they had forgotten. But this particular black guy wasn't the Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, or Du Bois or Paul Robeson or others that have been produced by this country, but rather a guy from Kansas, raised in the Midwest, who was, fair-haired child of the system all the way through Harvard Law, and then just appeared out of nowhere as the Democratic presidential candidate, beating, the anointed queen, Hillary Clinton, in the primary. That was a bit suspicious all by itself. Who was this guy? They let him speak at the 2004 convention with a long line of people who wanted to and who had actual power in the party establishment in the way, and yet he emerged and he was presented in the media favorably all the way up to the moment he became the nominee. Donald Trump's treatment by the media, although very fawning up until about mid-2015, has been anything else since. And as a matter of fact, this treatment in this most recent campaign by the entire political establishment is unprecedented by far. There have never been criminal charges uttered against the presidential candidate before, let alone dozens of criminal convictions on ridiculous charges of paperwork violations from years ago after the statute's run, of no political or economic or other consequence whatsoever. The media, wall to wall, has been hostile since he first uttered words suggesting that NATO was obsolete back in 2015. So the question, however, for us isn't it clear then that Obama was not our guy, meaning the people, and that Trump is? Or are we being shown a repeat of what we were shown in 2008? Obama is spent. The idea of let's have another member of the downtrodden classes rise up to lead us from this hellhole that we're in, which they tried to do with Harris, but they really had little maneuvering room after bungling the primaries with Biden. So they've had Trump as the bad boy, out here. But is that really what's going on, or is this whole thing some sort of media shit show? That's just something we have to parse and can't just assume one way or the other is it's this or that. And further, even if Trump believes and the people around him believe, or some believe, some don't, that they're following this track, history is marching down its own street, and everyone involved does everything to maintain their position, and you can't even call it opportunism. It's just the method of operation, MO. But if people think right now that, hi, I'm the new Obama, I'm going to look like the bad boy. Of course, I'm going to continue these policies that people oppose, but they're going to be busy defending me rather than opposing the policies that they should oppose. And so everything's great. It may well be that historical forces at work that are unprecedented, like our engagement in a war with Russia, could move events in a way that no one anticipates right now, including the major players. It's a dangerous time as far as all that goes.
Yeah, we're playing with fire on so many different levels, as you know. All the different World War III watches we have to cover every week on the show, how close we are to annihilation just because of what this last 4 years has done. Just pushing, escalating on so many different fronts, so many different nuclear wars that we're about to be in. So can Trump push us back a little on that? Yeah, possibly. But what you're saying, Don, We just have to keep a close eye on this every day and be open to the possibility that maybe incrementally there could be something done, or perhaps it's all a big show and we're not going to get one thing done. But either way we look at it, and the reason I go back to Obama is because I say we didn't know at the time that he was part of that thing, that we didn't know. We didn't have the WikiLeaks. We didn't know that he was putting the Citibank people right into his cabinet, that the email that had come in immediately on that next day, that he was just going to do that and not hold anyone accountable for all the stuff that Dick Cheney and Bush, and we thought he was going to do those things. But look, end of the day here, the moment still existed. We still showed up in droves and felt that something had happened. It ended up being a moment, not really a movement, but a moment in time, which I don't think they can take away from us, that we had that moment. So now I think it's fair to give the people that showed up there in droves, that said this guy's doing something important, regardless of the outcome, regardless of what happens tomorrow. It seems as if the moment has happened, so at least we can give them that and just enjoy this moment for what it is. And then the rest of us, you and me and others, our colleagues, our other friends, other shows that are covering this stuff, independent media, we will look at it every day and see how much of it was theater, how much of it is real, and give the honest take on it moving forward. But I don't think we can deny them that they got their moment, at least yesterday.
Well, first, one last bit of indulgence for me on 2008 campaign. You say that we didn't know, or we didn't know this or that. Of course, again, the question is, what do we actually know, or what do we think? And after the fact, I guess it's easier. But back in 2008, I was covering Cynthia McKinney's campaign. That was what I took upon myself to do. I traveled around the country beginning in December of 2007, a debate that was held in San Francisco, up to late October of 2008, where we were in Los Angeles and did a fundraiser with Roseanne Barr and some other things. And on the phone almost weekly, trying to pitch an interview on places like Democracy Now!, where I actually knew people, and other so-called progressive media, to try to get Cynthia's position out there, who at the time was on a boat to Gaza with supplies for children to try to break the blockade there, arrested and dragged to prison in Israel, Obama was talking about, only one president at a time. She was all over the world doing these different things out in the country. Huntsville prison in Texas, Alabama, where the hell it was, an execution, trying to stop an execution of a man who had an IQ, mid-50s or something. Real actual work, sitting on top of a career of 12 years in the Congress, doing real actual work, trying to force Pelosi to hold hearings in New Orleans over Katrina, with the land being stolen from the people there. No one heard of Barack Obama in 2005 in New Orleans. All of the things that she did over 20 some odd years, there was no Barack Obama in sight. And so from where I was sitting, it was pretty goddamn easy to see who was for real and who was full of shit. And Barack Obama was obviously full of shit. Now, there are people that'll tell you right now, and I've had some personal experience myself over the years, that Donald Trump is also full of shit. And that any other politician who you're going to put up there, the bulk of them, there are very few like Dennis Kucinich and Cynthia McKinney, and very, very few others I won't even mention in case they do something contrary today, that were for real, that put in the time and effort to do the work. In other words, that you could say, I trust them to do this. The stakes are so large, and the things that are in motion now so powerful. And I think the stakes are really, really high in the eyes of the people who are in decision-making positions. I think the elite in the West understands that unless they change the course of history, pushing against the course it's following, that their time is going to be up soon as the masters of the universe. despite the fact that some people think they're going to be one of the leading billionaires at the time we colonize the solar system, or whatever other delusions any of them have. The real stake in this is what is going to happen here on this planet for us, as our labor is no longer necessary. Our role as consumers has been waning for decades, and the power of those sitting on top of it and the wealth have been increasing at an accelerated rate. We have a world being, it's seeping through our fingers and into the hands of a very small group of people. And we don't really have a concept of the whole of it, let alone a plan to change its course. And the political system is the place where we think the battle is, the electoral political system. And you can see that there are a lot of people involved in all sides that are focused on that. But is that what we're supposed to do? And if it is, how the hell do we get through this? I don't know the answer to any of these things.
Yeah.
These are the questions I wake up to every morning.
Yeah, and those are the right questions to be asking, Don.